What is up out there in podcast land? Welcome to Mass Faces and Secret Bases. I'm your host, Mike Jamison, and with me, as always, are the Soroyce brothers, Matt and Todd. Guys, how you doing tonight?
We're doing well.
I'm doing well, thank you, Mike.
And tonight, we are covering something that became landmark in the Marvel Universe, but did not start out that way. That's right, we are covering Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions. And, we were just, before we hit record on this episode, we were all talking amongst ourselves. This was the second time that I actually read this collection. And Matt, I think you have more experience with this than anyone. Did you buy these when they were first out? Did you come to them afterward?
I think I came to him about 3 years after the series was. I knew of it because it was mentioned occasionally, in the Avengers and other comics, and I remember seeing pictures of the covers in some trade magazines that I would look at. But I first picked it up. I got all 3 issues together. It was probably the summer of '84, maybe '85, and it was for my birthday. My dad had, there was a tradition of taking me to comic shops in driving range, and we went to one. I believe it was simply called the Comic Store in Nashua, New Hampshire, and right up by the counter, he had a bunch of Marvel miniseries that had all been collected together and put in individual bags, so you could buy the collection all at once. And he had Contest of Champions 1 through 3, all for, I think he was selling it for $3, so it was only like a 40-cent markup on each issue. And I had to have it because here was all the superheroes gathered. So, what? I know I'd already read Secret Wars, so yes, it had to have been at least 84 for it to be in that timeline. And yeah, it's just, it blew me away because, you'll hear it anytime you'll listen to most comic podcasts about comic books. We all love a multi superhero gathering book because you got more heroes for your money.
Yep, and like you just said, this was published from June to August in 1982, and it was significant because it was Marvel's first published limited series. And it started out, a little bit of the backstory, it was intended to be a tie-in with the 1980 Summer Olympics that were being held in Moscow, and depicted Marvel superheroes teaming up, being paired off, and engaging in basically a contest. And as I said, it was supposed to tie in with the Moscow Olympic Games, which unfortunately the United States boycotted in 1980, and then Marvel basically put it on the back burner, put it in a shelf somewhere, and said, "Okay, possibly we'll come back to this." It was written by Mark Grunwald and also Bill Mantlo and Steve Grant, and it was illustrated by John Romita Jr. and Bob Layton. So 2 years later, they pulled it back out. They had to make a couple changes to it, obviously, and released it as Contest of Champions. And I think you could see when you read it, and if you're really into Marvel and the Marvel Universe, you can catch a couple of instances where you can tell it was probably written a couple years ago. But other than that, if you didn't know the backstory, and other than the sudden appearance of all of these superheroes from different countries, but other than that, you wouldn't be able to tell that it was repurposed from the 1980 Summer Olympic tie-in that it was supposed to be.
Yeah, it was originally supposed to be a Treasury edition.
Yeah, which would have been with I love the genre. Burying the lead, the John Romita art is really great, and it would have been cool to see this in the Treasury edition. And you can see, I was saying I had the Kindle version, the collected version, and the extras they have some of his just pencil art in the back, and you see at the top it says Marvel Treasury Edition on the pages. So yeah, you could see that it was intended as a Treasury edition, and it would have been cool to see that in the bigger format.
You can.
Oh,
I hold in my hands, besides I have this in multiple formats. I have the original 3 issues. I have the original trade paperback edition where they actually, on the cover, they have the Grandmaster looking like one of the DC's Guardians of the Universe on it. And there is what they call the Gallery edition, which is a hardcover edition published at just about the size of the old Marvel Treasury editions.
Now, when did they put out the Gallery edition?
This is, I want to say, about 3 years old.
Okay.
And you can still find it on Amazon. If you just put in Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions Gallery Edition, it will come up. And it not only includes all 3 issues of the Contest of Champions, it also reprints all the handbook entry style. Well, I shouldn't call them handbooks. They're basically little blurbs for each hero. But it was the first time they put listings of who all the superheroes were, and then little blurbs about them, and you got their first appearance and all that. It also includes West Coast Avengers Annual 2 and Avengers Annual 16, which has the quote-unquote sequel to Contest of Champions. But best of all, it has the wonderful introduction by Tom DeFalco, where he goes over the entire saga of putting this story together. And like you mentioned, how it was originally intended to be a Treasury edition tied into the 1980 Summer Olympics. And, Grunwald and everybody's working on it. And then it was basically, shelved. The thing was, they had sent the artwork off to be inked by Pablo. I can't find his name here.
It was Pablo Marcus.
Pablo Marcus. They had sent it off to Pablo Marcus to be inked, and then when they shelved it, nobody told him. So he just kept inking away at the pages, and since nobody was bothering about it, he would put it aside to do other work. And then once he finally finished inking what he had, he sent it back to Marvel and said, when am I going to get the other pages?
You gotta love the world before email and text messages, where he had no idea. He's just like, that would basically that's basically me at work, where I'm like, okay, I'll keep working on this, and nobody has said anything, so I'll keep doing it, but I'll just do it at my own pace because they haven't said anything. So maybe they just forgot about it.
Well, when Mark Grunwald saw the pages, he went running into Jim Shooter's office and says, you know what? We can't waste this stuff. We gotta use this. I'll figure out a way to use what we have. And like you said, they had to redraw and re-edit because some of the teams, the roster of the Avengers had changed a little bit. New heroes had been introduced. Like, for instance, She-Hulk has a rather large, She-Hulk is a featured character in this. She was still brand new when the project had been first conceived. Now, by the time this comes out, her original ongoing series had ended about 2 months prior to this first issue of this hitting the stands, and it goes over everything from DeFalco found this to be a quote unquote nightmare project that just wouldn't go away. Every time he thought he was done with something would come up. Because I remember when I first read it, and again, this was, a few years after it had been put, I read it and I'm like, and we'll get to it, they screwed up the ending.
Yes.
They
Yep.
completely botched the ending. And DeFalco talks about how after it was, he goes, we're finally done. The last issue's been published. It's out there. The fans have read it. We're done. He and Mark Grunwald got called into Jim Shooter's office, who's looking angry and standing in front of piles of mail from fans who have written in about the third issues of the series. And Tom DeFalco's like, why did people bother writing in? The series is over. There would be no place to publish those letters. And Jim Shooter's like, they're all upset about how the ending got screwed up. And DeFalco was like, and he said, Mark Grunwald immediately says, "Oh, we did that so that we could do a sequel." And no, they screwed up, but Grunwald knew how to,
Yep.
knew how to answer the question, and Shooter was like, "Oh, well, okay then." He figured, okay, we got out of that, and then a few years later, sure enough, in the Avengers annuals of, I believe they were the annuals for '86.
I think it was 87.
Oh,
I think it
even
was I'm pretty sure it was 87.
so, just when he was about to say, "Okay, I'm done with that series again," all of a sudden he's told, "Oh yeah, we're writing a sequel for the Avengers annual." And then he even mentions, like, okay, and then when I thought I was finally done, well, guess who they asked to write for the introduction to the trade paperback?
Yeah, that the introductions in the Kindle edition too, and it is charming. And I mean, it's a nice peek behind the curtain of creating comic books. And like you said, the comic book logic, we screwed up. Oh, it's okay. We're gonna, we can bring this character back from the dead. We can do this. We can do that. I mean, it's comic books. You can figure out some way. I mean, they're no prizing it basically on the run there and trying to figure out what they're gonna do. But yeah, it's a really great introduction. It's one of the better introductions to collected editions I've ever read.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's just all because, and I'm sure it just was at some point during that final writing of that, scripting that final issue, he just lost track of who was on whose team. It's that simple.
Which is understandable.
Well, you would hope they'd have taken notes, because I remember, again, when I first read it, and like I said, we'll get to it. I'm like, wait a minute, this character got the last wedge. I'm fairly certain she was on this person's team. And then you just flip back a few pages to the beginning of this adventure, and sure enough, they are all correctly identified as being on the proper teams. So somewhere in those few pages, they lost track and ended up giving the win to the wrong person.
Did Shamrock exist prior to the story?
Nope, she was one of the new. Almost all the international heroes we will meet in this comic are new and were introduced for this. And again, since it was supposed to be an Olympic event, you would want, superheroes from all nations showing up to participate.
But I think, I mean, maybe that's why it was screwed up, is they picked one of these like random newbies and they lost track of whose team she was even on.
Right. And I used to try to justify it to myself as that, since maybe Captain America also almost had it, maybe who was ever refereeing the event said, no, penalty on Shamrock.
Right.
And Matt, you have with the edition that you have, it has those Avengers annuals, because don't they bring up that there was the mistake and they kind of retroactively rectify it?
They kind of don't.
Okay, I thought they did.
Kind of mentions he was cheated, but again, it was cheated to his advantage because he's declared the winner when it was a tie, which again makes me wonder, like, maybe they should have split it up into an uneven amount of pieces, because for those who don't know, the events were, this globe was split up into 4 pieces and sent to the 4 corners of the earth, and the teams were sent out to go gather the pieces. You don't split it into 4 where you could have a tie. You split it into 3 or 5 so that, you all have the best, 3 out of 5 or whatever.
Right. Or yeah, like that way you can have the tiebreaker. You can have the big, tiebreaker story. Which I guess they kind of sort of did in the sequel, right?
Yes, but in the sequel, there's more. I don't think we're really going to discuss the sequel. I think we want to stick to the main series. But yeah, in the sequel, both Avengers teams are gathered together to fight the Legion of Unliving, which was a bunch of dead heroes and villains, which again retroactively doesn't work because a lot of the dead heroes and villains were dead at the time, but later decided, no, I haven't been dead. I was just in Europe recovering.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say like it's Marvel. How many dead villains could they? How many dead heroes could they possibly end up fighting?
Well, Bucky even shows up, and again, we learn Bucky never actually died. He was just
Right.
suspended animation all that time.
It's
Is
poor
like
Uncle
the is like the
Ben.
final. I was gonna say is the final boss Uncle Ben.
Yeah, it's Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, and like the Punisher's poor family. Like that's
You forget his wife has been resurrected, so just
until now. Yes, I did forget that. I had forgotten that. I had forgotten that successfully.
all right. So why don't we get into the series itself? Unless buddy, want to reminisce or
Yeah, no more talk about the sequel.
well,
We can talk.
maybe if we find ourselves we still want to do it at the end of this, we can talk more about. I just I know I look at this series through nostalgia goggles, but it's still a lot of fun. It's hero versus hero, but unlike well, Wolverine again, but Wolverine's got to be Wolverine and he's going to be aggressive. But for the most part, the heroes are like, yeah, okay, we got to fight each other to get this globe. And as you'll see, well, we'll get into the story. We'll get.
Right, like what I appreciate is at least here the contrivance is on the nose, right? It's not like, oh, I tricked him into thinking like, Thor has been a Skrull this whole time or something lame like that. It's like they know why they have to.
Yeah, it's not the
It
normal
might be a
Marvel.
bit silly, but at least it's like it's right there on the table.
We just met. We have to fight. They know what the deal is. So
They've all been given incentive to do their best to, win the prize.
yeah, and like Matt said, we'll get to it. But those are the best parts of all the issues: are seeing who's been teamed up with each other, how they're going to match up against each other, and just the personalities that they are. It's not just a slugfest.
How many of these characters, of the ones that are brand new, did you know they were brand new?
Some of
Did you
them,
know, like, none of them, like, wait a minute, like, were you trying to find back issues of, like, Shamrock or Sabra or,
well,
like, I don't know, Arabian Night, if that was any of those?
Again, the little glossary index of superheroes told me where they first appeared. So I could just go in and look and see, like, oh, well, Shamrock first appeared in Contest of Champions #1, so I know I have her first appearance.
Is that in the version I have? I don't remember seeing that.
It is not. You have the original trade paperback that does not have those
Got it.
Those entries.
Okay.
It's okay. Don't worry. Her last appearance was Contest of Champions #3 because you never saw her again.
That's
unlucky.
Correct, sir.
I know it. As soon as I said it, I'm like, I'm probably wrong.
Oh, that is lucky.
No, she came back at least, I know, in a Guardians of the Galaxy annual.
Okay.
Lucky enough to survive into the future.
I was going to guess Deadpool. I feel like she would somehow make an appearance in Deadpool. Like most of these characters would somehow make an appearance in Deadpool.
And they modified her costume so that her hair came out kind of like, you would see most like the original Jessica Drew Spider-Woman.
Yep.
Up the top of her mask to let her hair out. Surprisingly, she's a redhead.
No way. Oh, goodness.
So I suppose the best way to start is with the cover of Contest of Champions #1, which packs in just about as many superheroes as they possibly could to still have them at least a big, a decent size. And again, the wonderful thing about the gallery edition is because of its size and format, they're able to raise the logo of Contest of Champions. And on this cover, you get to see Iron Fist, Captain Britain, Luke Cage, and Black Panther, who are all cut off by the logo on the cover of the original issue. And you can see the French hero, Peregrine.
Yeah, Peregrine.
Storm, who are covered up by the blurb that says featuring every single superhero on Earth in the greatest battle of them all. And we get.
I'm just curious, just for my own edification, and I'm not really trying to make it a thing or anything, but can you just like point out who when you're going through them, who was made up for this and who wasn't? Like many of them I know. were real. Like that's Captain Britain, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you have like Sasquatch and so on. But can you just point out which ones aren't?
Who were made there for?
Who are up? Yeah,
Yes.
when you go through
I just also want to point out that Hulk and Spider-Man are featured prominently on the cover of the first issue, despite the fact that they're not really
them. Right.
most of the story. Now, I'm assuming that's because, one, Hulk and Spider-Man were two of Marvel's most popular characters at the time. So you wanted them on this cover to sell this book. But this was also about introducing people to new characters. So I'm sure that's why they weren't picked to be to open up slots for other characters. So you still get your heavy hitters in this book, but they wanted to make sure we were introduced to not only brand new characters, but possibly characters we weren't reading at the time, as I certainly was.
No.
Yeah, I mean, Spider-Man gets literally, I think, one line of dialogue in all 3 issues.
Is Wolverine at this point when this came out? Is he still like a mid-carder or something, or is he main eventing?
Yes, he was definitely a popular character, and the X-Men books were extremely popular.
Okay.
But that was still kind of...
But we're still a ways away from Wolverine must be in everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this was most likely written in 79 into 80, so he was getting there, but... And he's one of the ones I think they had to change when they updated it, like the costume, because I believe he was still in his yellow and blues when they originally did it, and then had to update the costume. But he was Wolverine, but he wasn't Wolverine yet.
Got it. So it's like Nation of Domination Wolverine.
That's right.
Not the People's Champion.
Exactly.
So on the very first page, we get a really nice splash page of the Grandmaster, who this is his introduction in the Marvel Universe, and the other cosmic being, the Unknown, talking about how they're going to have a game and use the superheroes of Earth as their pawns in this challenge. And ultimately, the Grandmaster, we find out, is a sibling of another cosmic being, the Collector. And if you're only familiar with, the Marvel through the MCU, we're talking the Benicio del Toro character, the Collector, and the Jeff Goldblum character, the Grandmaster. Although again, their translations to film are different from what they were in the comics.
That I never picked up on that. That blows my mind because I did read Contest of Champions like ages and ages ago, and some of it came flooding back when I was reading it again for this. But I completely forgot both of those characters were in those movies.
Yeah, and if you remember in Thor Ragnarok, I believe when Hulk and Thor fight, I think Goldblum's character that it says calls it a contest of champions. So I think that's like a little Easter egg they kind of threw in there.
And basically, this challenge is the Grandmaster wants the power to bring the, at the time, dead Collector back to life. So then you turn the page, and now you get a great 2-page spread of the Avengers working out in their gymnasium. And the Beast, who I'm fairly certain had left the Avengers probably just shortly before this and was with the Defenders at the time, but it's negligible. It's just right on the edge of him still being with the Avengers. And, he's bragging, and he basically says, all right, let's have a game of, basically tag. All of you against me. If I can hold out for, a few minutes, I win. But if one of you tags me, I lose.
Yeah, and this is one of the things Marvel was always good at, especially with the Avengers, where they made it feel like a team. Even with the X-Men, with the Danger Room, it was always a cool thing to see them just not on an adventure, but in Avengers Mansion or with the X-Men in the Danger Room, just working together. Although I do have to point out that Iron Man and the Vision are jogging.
I was just gonna point that out.
Doesn't the armor do everything for Tony, and the Vision is the Vision's an android, so I don't
Yeah.
understand how that's helping them. But I mean, you do you if you want. Maybe he was trying to make the Vision feel better because he's always depressed that he's not totally human. So he
Maybe
decided to jog with him.
it's like, here, you can be bored with me. You can truly know what it's like to be a human. Yeah, I saw that too. I'm just like, of all the people to have like, first of all, of all like the cool superhero exercises, but I guess even they need basic calisthenics sometimes. But yeah, just the jogging, and I'm like, right, Iron Man's doing it in the suit, and then yeah, Vision, like, does he even need to exercise? Like, so many questions there.
He probably programmed all his favorite tunes into the Vision, having Vision be basically his job radio station. So then basically almost the entire first issue is basically montages of all the different Earth superheroes being teleported away. We get the Soviet super soldiers being teleported away as they're battling the Crimson Ghost. We see the Fantastic Four are at some sort of award banquet when they're teleported away.
I do like that. This, like you said, this first issue is basically a bunch of montages, but it does, and I just said it with the training splash page. It does highlight again what Marvel was really good at, and I've always considered myself more of a DC guy, but I love Marvel too. But this is the stuff that Marvel was good at, where the Fantastic Four is just at it's just at a banquet, and you get the Thing as he is like yawning, and he's obviously doesn't want to be there, and Sue is kind of telling Johnny and the Thing to behave. It's just like Marvel always did that really well, where they did make it feel like a universe where it was just like these superheroes exist, and this is just the normal stuff that goes on in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them are in battle, but others, like again, the X-Men are just like the Avengers. They're training in the Danger Room. Spider-Man's crawling up a building when he's teleporting away, while a witness to him crawling up the building goes, "Gee, I didn't know Spider-Man could turn invisible." Power Man and Iron Fist are teleported away in the middle of stopping a bank robbery. Uh, Valkyrie and Hellcat are at a show where Dazzler is singing. The three of them are teleported away. Moon Knight and
Daredevil.
just kind of hanging out. Quasar and Jack of Hearts are hanging out, and like, Quasar, is your energy leaking? And like, no, because this glow is surrounding them, and they just disappear.
It should have been like, that's none of your business, and I'll ask you to keep your opinions to yourself.
But at least almost everybody at least gets a panel. Thor gets his panel, Sunfire, Black Knight, the Eternals, Red Wolf. We get some of the heroes that will be all sharing a page that are being introduced for this book.
Yep.
From France, Peregrine; from Australia, Talisman; from Argentina, Defensor; from Ireland, Shamrock; Israel has Sabra; China has the Collective;
Oh.
from Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Night; and from Germany, Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, some of these were a little on the nose, I think.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of like, there's a reason I was using WWE analogies.
Yeah. And some of them I know, with like in 2 years time with Secret Wars. I mean, it was made basically to sell action figures, but like somebody like Defensor seems like he could have been like a Superpowers action figure, like one of those ones that they made up for the Superpowers toy line.
Well, I was gonna say more likely like the dollar store, like superheroes.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing of it is too is like you could tell they were trying, but like, they didn't try too hard. All right, we need a superhero from Ireland. Well, Shamrock, and they have the power of luck. Okay. What about Saudi Arabia? Arabian Night. He's got a sword and it flies around on a magic carpet. Perfect. Uh, what about
China.
Argentina? Defensor. Defense. Well, that just sounds. Oh, we'll have him dressed up like a modern day conquistador. Okay, as long as
Great.
we get a stereotype in there, we're
Cut,
comfortable.
printed. Yeah.
Although I would have liked to have seen Black Cat and Shamrock fight each other with bad luck powers and luck powers. That would have been interesting. Unless it's happened already, considering I didn't know that Shamrock even existed after this series was published. So
That would be entertaining. I like the fact that despite she's presumably based in Ireland, even Captain Britain didn't know who she was.
yes, well, the times back then.
Well, and they do make reference to that.
Yes, they do. They do.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, they do.
Because we get another
Again.
2-page spread of all the heroes gathered in this satellite together, all of them wondering, all right, what's going on? And again, to their credit, they're superheroes. They're kind of used to being kidnapped. Secret Wars had that, but they're kind of used to I guess we're on some other cosmic crusade here. And, they're just all kind of yay.
Right.
Thor goes up to Icarus of the Eternals. Hey, what transpires here? I do not know, friend Thor.
Yeah.
The Alpha Fighter, hey, Wolverine, you as mystified as we are? Yep, none of us really know. You got a great pairing of Beast meeting Sasquatch.
Yeah, that is great.
Yes.
You make a good point, though. They are probably used to suddenly waking up and seeing some grinning overlord's face gloating back at them.
I always think of
a lot.
I always think of it, and it's great. It's from Spider-Man: Far From Home, when I can't remember when Peter's talking to Nick Fury, and he's kind of I can't. He's complaining about something, and Nick Fury just looks at him and says, "Bitch, you've been to space." They shouldn't be surprised about this kind of stuff. This is just another day in the life. Although I will admit, we did bring up that Captain Britain and Shamrock do speak to one another. The way it's framed and the way it's drawn, it looks like that Captain Britain is trying to catch a quick peek of Shamrock.
He's
Yes,
completely.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't want to sound like a total scumbag, but I mean, yeah, basically.
That's the vibe I was getting.
Okay, good.
Don't you mean sleazebag?
Yeah, that's right. Well, yes. It is. It is part of my personality. I mean, it's not like I wasn't looking at her either. You would hope to be like Spider-Man, where his just total whole mask is kind of covered up, so maybe she wouldn't be able to tell. But yeah, Captain Britain is totally trying to catch a quick peek.
They got Spider-Woman and Spider-Woman and Spider-Man actually meeting for the first time.
Oh, is it the first time?
California-based hero. So this is their first meeting.
Okay.
And everybody, even Kat says, maybe we should ask, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange will probably have a theory. Where's Iron Man? He's always got these great theories. I don't know if this is the first Doctor Druid in regular Marvel continuity after he'd been Doctor Droom during the Golden Age.
Oh, okay.
We briefly see him here with Damien Hellstrom. We got the Black Knight comparing his sword to the Arabian Night sword, and they're both comparing that to Defensor's shield.
Yeah, they have a sword measuring contest. See, you get a bunch of superheroes together, this is what happens.
Yeah, well, and again, they're all gravitating to like we said, the two furry guys are meeting up. Spider people are meeting up. The Mystics are meeting up. And now we got our water-based heroes, Stingray, Triton, and some Mariner all kind of getting together. Hey guys, what's up,
You even who is it who's with in the same frame as Xavier, the woman?
Moon Dragon.
There you go, the only other bald person in the they can't help themselves.
No. And we're laughing about it, but I guess for this time, it would have been cool because this is the first time that all of these heroes were ever together in one comic book. I think now we're so jaded because of all these team ups and all the crises and all the other, universe shattering events that have taken place over the 40 plus years since this came out, that we're used to seeing super team ups. But now, or not now, then this was something that was new. So for somebody who was like a 10-year-old kid reading this probably would have blown my mind.
Well, and then we get, and this is very important because again, this is 1983. In one of these panels, we have Doctor Strange, Reed Richards, Charles Xavier, and Iron all together conversing. A lot of people have said this is the birth of the Illuminati.
I was kind of thinking the same thing. They
Retro-
could so retroactively do that if they want to.
It works perfectly. And so
Would.
after they've been given time to kind of discuss and become aware of their surroundings, now the Grandmaster and the Unknown basically come out and say, all right, gather around. Can I get everybody's attention? Can you down in the back? Alpha Flight. Are you listening? Oh, you want me to say it in French too? Okay. Here's the deal, people. And in one of these panels again, we've got Captain Universe, Jack of Hearts, Red Wolf, the 3D Man, and the Wizard with the Shroud, all basically semi-retired, not often used superheroes, all crowded into the same panel. Like they were like, okay, we're not allowed to hang out with that group, and those guys are cool, and there's girls over there. Come on, guys, let's make our own little group over here.
It does have like freshman dance
Well,
vibes going.
well, some of them to like imagine you're a fairly new superhero, like really low level. You operate out of like I don't know some place in the middle of nowhere, and you get next thing you know you're being levitated into space, and then it's like, oh wow, I'm in this room with like Thor and the Hulk and Spider-Man and Captain America. Like this is amazing. I must be. And then you look over and like then there's a whole bunch of people like just like you and even people like you've never heard of in like a million years. It's gonna be a little disappointing. Like, oh, I guess everybody is here then. Like it starts to diminish as like each person shows up and you're like, who?
Well, and the 3D Man operated during the 1950s, so this might have been his first contemporary appearance.
Oh, so he must have been thrilled. It's like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. There should have been one of him like jumping onto someone's legs, being carried away by the thing.
He was in a theater somewhere watching Jaws 3D when he dematerialized and was brought to the.
We just watched that again the other day. It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, just watched it like Friday.
Well, and the Wizard, the Wizard was, an elderly character at the time, not having had the benefits of being frozen in ice since World War II. He was an older person. So basically, the Grandmaster gives everybody the gist of what's going on. It's like, yeah, you've been kidnapped. You're going to be used in a game between me and the Unknown, so that when I win this game, I'm gonna get my brother back, the Collector. He's gonna be brought back to life. And he goes, and since obviously, we're gonna cut this globe into 4 pieces and scatter it around, and whoever's team collects the most pieces will be declared the winner. And just in case you people are thinking of not participating, let me give you he also points out that the entire world, except for them, is basically frozen in time. So all the world's citizens and the supervillains, because obviously the supervillains would be like, hey, the heroes are gone. Let's show us how to take over the world. Well, they're all kind of stuck in suspended animation. And
Doom is doing like the old time rock and roll dance.
the Grandmaster makes an offer that, okay, so here's the incentive for you to help me win. If my team wins, I promise to never use Earth people in my games ever again. So now the people he will start picking for his team, and we basically get a
And
scene
he promised, so
in the schoolyard of picking teams for the kickball. So you got everybody's like, oh, please don't pick me last. The first person he picks, Grandmaster and I, same page. First person he picks is Captain America. And then the unknown says, okay, well, to offer my team incentive, if my team wins, I will extend the life of your planet's sun by an extra 1,000,000 years. And she makes her first pick, which is Vanguard of the Soviet super soldiers. And he's like, oh, well, if we win, this will benefit untold generations, an extra 1,000,000 years of life on Earth. And they go through and they basically pick 12. They get to pick 12 heroes each. And on the Grandmaster's team, we have Captain America, Talisman, who makes his first appearance, Darkstar of the Soviet super soldiers, Wolverine, Captain Britain, Defensor, again making his first appearance, Sasquatch of Alpha Flight, She-Hulk, again, who is basically a relatively new character. She'd only been around for 2 years at this point. Daredevil, Peregrine from France, making his first appearance. Blitzkrieg from Germany, making his first appearance. And The Thing all represent Grandmaster's team. For the Unknowns team, we have Iron Man, Vanguard, Shamrock making her first appearance, Iron Fist, Storm, Arabian Knight making his first appearance, Angel, Sabra of Israel making her first appearance, Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. Well, actually, she would still be the Invisible Girl at this time. Sunfire, Black Panther, and the Collective from China making his first appearance. The globe is split. The teams are beamed away to their battlegrounds, and the first issue comes to an end. Thoughts?
I just wonder how they picked with the newer characters, because again, you have to look at this in the scope of that they were doing this for the Olympics originally. But I know you mentioned it earlier, but you just wonder why they didn't go with. I mean, they went with Captain America and Iron Man, who were popular back then, but who aren't as popular as they are now. But why they wouldn't go with Spider-Man, with the Hulk, Mr. Fantastic, some of the more well-known superheroes to balance out. Because even Daredevil, I think, if this was written in like 79, 80, and even in 82, he was known, but I don't think this might have been at the beginning of Frank Miller taking over the character. So he wasn't as big as he would get in the mid to later 80s.
Well, and you'll also notice there's no really super powerful characters on either team. She-Hulk and Thing are both incredibly strong characters.
Mm-hmm.
And, Iron Man's, a kind of a jack of all trades. But you don't have anybody like Thor or, again, the Hulk or anybody, or Silver Surfer.
Mm-hmm.
Characters that would could basically handle the mission all on their own. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the reasons they didn't have the Hulk in here. But again, I'm fairly certain it probably just had more to do with they didn't need the exposure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the second issue cover almost has it like you've got the Grandmaster and the Unknown kind of, we're looking over the unknown shoulder, Tomb of the Unknown Shoulder, looking at Grandmaster, and it's almost like they've turned their heroes into action figures and turning them loose on each other.
Somebody walked in and said, "I swear I didn't see you playing with your action figures."
Yes. It's a neat cover. It's got a great perspective on it. And then we get a brief little recap because, again, at this time, the dictate was every comic could possibly be somebody's first comic. So bring them up to date to what they missed. And, story wise, there wasn't a lot going on in the first issue. So it was really easy to recap it all into one page. Then we get a nice 2-page spread again with it's kind of odd because it makes it look like the Grandmaster's team of Daredevil, Darkstar, and Talisman have teleported just mere feet away from the Unknown's team of Sunfire, Invisible Woman, and Iron Fist. But as you kind of read the story, it seems like they're farther apart than they are, and they've been teleported to some sort of Arctic tundra. I mean, it immediately you get the feeling that, in particular, Talisman must be
Yeah,
his butt off.
all of them in their like skin tight spandex
Well,
in
at
the
least
middle of the Arctic.
Sunfire could probably generate his own heat, so he's probably, and you almost think his teammates would, all right, just stick close to me, please.
And am I wrong? But couldn't she have created a invisible force field around them to kind of keep out the snow and everything? I don't
Yeah,
know.
definitely keep out the wind, and she could at least, they could start generating their own, use their own body heat to in a smaller enclosed space.
But you're right. I mean, they do show that the way there's that one panel where Sue and Iron Fist are shaking hands, and you could see that it's drawn where they're both kind of like their bodies are shaking from the cold.
They
But
do the art here is just phenomenal in depicting, the situation they're in.
yeah, and I like with the writing also. Like we had brought up when we first started, even within the teams, because you have the different personalities where Sunfire kind of is basically, I'm going to go on my own and win victory for the day, and you see the thought bubble of Iron Fist, and he's like hothead. So they're showing that it's not just like, okay, we have to go and fight these guys. There's stuff going, the personality clashes within the teams, and I just like how that's written. It could have just been slugfest after slugfest with all this stuff, but they take the time to delve into the personalities of the different characters.
Yes, exactly. We know Sunfire is literally a hothead, but he immediately decides, I don't need you two idiots. I'm just going to go off on my own. I'm going to find this thing and put an end to this whole little stupid contest. And yeah, Sue Storm and Iron Fist are like, well, okay, so I don't know if we've ever been formally introduced, but I'm Sue Storm, and yeah, I'm Iron Fist, and let's stick together and see if we can go find this wedge. Uh, Daredevil, Darkstar, and Talisman make a bit better of a team. They all instantly start discussing, the situation and what they're going to do and how they need to, you know, play this kind of game and get it done. But, then Darkstar kind of flies off, and we get kind of an idea of what Talisman is, kind of a magic user. And, Darkstar and Sunfire are flying above above the area, and they get into their first bit of combat. Um, Sue Storm spots Daredevil, and she says, "You know what? Maybe we should keep it covered, in case he finds the prize." So Iron Fist goes off to confront Daredevil. And it's Daredevil, I'm Iron Fist. Daredevil, his sense is like, yeah, I'm up against a fighter, and we get a kind of an honorable martial arts, type of fight.
And that's what I was talking about. It just takes into consideration both of their characters and both of their personalities, and it matches them off pretty well. So that's what makes it. That's what makes it a cool type of fight to get to experience, because these characters, you didn't really see them interacting that much in the Marvel universe at this time. So it was nice that they took the time again, to delve into their personalities, where you knew Iron Fist. I like that he when he says "Shall we begin?" and he bows, and then Daredevil goes to goes to kind of jump him, and Iron Fist says to him, "My bow was a martial arts courtesy, Daredevil, not a sign that I wasn't ready."
Yeah, and even Daredevil's like, wait, is he bowing to me? What's the... Again, I cannot stress enough how excellently the art depicts all of this.
Yeah, John Romita Jr. was he was on point. He was great in this. And we even before that you had Talisman and Sue encountering one another, and he starts he has a whirling bull roar as his kind of like weapon, which they look like nunchucks almost. And it basically it's like it warps her senses and perceptions. And the way that we'll get to it later too, because he does it even more later. But like the way that he depicts like Sue, just kind of like freak. It's like a psychedelic freak out almost.
The Dream World art, especially in one of the later, I think either towards the middle or the end of the first arc, is really interesting.
Yeah.
I love how that was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to have taken some time to pencil and ink this.
Yeah, and like you said, even with them being in the locale that they're in with the Arctic, I mean, they have the stuff. You're right on point where you said like you can feel it. Like makes me cold looking at it because it just has that relentless snow and wind and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was like an interesting choice to set it there.
The battle between Darkstar and Sunfire gets literally heated, and the heat Sunfire is generating actually causes the ice sheet that they're battling on to crack and open up to some freezing waters underneath them. There's this great panel where the ice cracks between Daredevil and Iron Fist, and the loud sound and the shock of it actually stuns Iron Fist, and Daredevil starts reaching out with his radar senses, and he picks up where the wedge of the globe is. Sue Storm finds herself, over the freezing water, but fortunately she puts, like you mentioned, she does a force field around herself, basically putting herself in a human hamster ball that is floating on ice, and she spots the wedge as well, and she starts, rushing towards it. Daredevil, I mean, I don't like diving into a cold pool, let alone frigid Arctic waters, but he dives in immediately. The flying heroes also spot it, and everybody starts racing towards this wedge while Talisman continues to use his powers to distort reality around them and confuse everybody. But it doesn't do enough to distort Daredevil senses, which is good because they're on the same side. But Daredevil is able to use his billy club to snatch the wedge away just as Sue Storm is only a few feet away from it. Daredevil claims the wedge, and Grandmaster's team claims the first victory.
Now I know Matt's answer without even asking him, but do you have a which team did you instinctively want to win this one?
I didn't have anybody I wanted to win. I was going to ask at the end who everybody thought was the best like battle out of all of them. I didn't have any I think the reason that I didn't it's not that I didn't like this, but I think the reason I don't hold it in as high esteem as some other people, even probably like Matt, is just because there weren't more heavy hitters in it.
There's so much filler, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I would have rather have seen Spider-Man. I would have rather have seen the Hulk. And like Matt said, I understand why they probably didn't do it, because you can't have Thor or another god, basically demigod.
Not having Spider-Man seems to be the most egregious of choice. I can kind of understand Hulk, right?
Yep.
Like there's reasons you can say, well, Hulk wouldn't be a good team. Like then again, I don't know what version of the Hulk it would be at the time.
Although I was going
right?
to say you probably could have had him as like a wild card, because if he was like the Hulk who...
He could have been his own team.
Yeah.
Or it could have been like, all right, the 11 of you versus the Hulk. That might have been fair.
Yeah. Hulk is, I just pick him. That's it.
Right, Hulk, and then everybody else.
But yeah, there
So,
wasn't anybody I like
but
totally was automatically drawn to. I was
yeah,
more drawn to when they had the battles and stuff, because I do think they do all the battles are done really well. Just with, like I keep saying, it's not just fisticuffs. They manage to work in personality, and I do like that it's not just, okay, we have to go fight this team, where heroes who have previously teamed up or know each other are like, hey, like, we're friends. We're not gonna. I mean, I'll give it away. My favorite one is the Wolverine one, just because it's great. Because that's how Wolverine would be. He wouldn't care.
right.
He's just like, I don't care. I'm
Wolverine
gonna
is
run
still
you. I'm
Wolverine.
gonna run you through. And the Thing says to him, it's like, okay, I know Black Panther. He's a friend of mine. Like,
Yeah,
we're not gonna do this.
right. Wolverine works stiff. You have to know that. Yeah. Yeah, like I had forgotten. Like it had been a long time since I read this, so I had forgotten like all of the. And I'm reading them, just like these characters feel like they were made up on the spot, but I'm not sure.
Just some
And
of
I
the ones.
guess
Like I
now
said,
I
like
know.
Defensor is just like the most generic of generic.
Very
I mean, I
late. Yeah.
understand. Like
Yeah.
he does look like a conquistador, but I mean, take away the hat
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
helmet, and that
He,
that could be just like anything, or like a
he
Radiant Knight. Like you said, it's like, gee, did we really put a lot of thought into this?
right.
It's a guy with a turban, a scimitar, and a magic carpet.
D- Defen Defensor is the most like leftover from a bunch of ideas
Like you said,
from a
he's like
toy
he's a
plan
Raktoid.
that
He's a
yeah,
Raktoid. It's what you
yeah,
would just find in a
yeah,
Rite Aid in like
yeah,
1985.
right, right.
Um, to their, the characters did at least get to evolve because. Well, I was just going to point out that, Sabra and Arabian Night were brought back during Ed Brubaker's run on Captain America, and he really did a lot to help modernize the two characters and make them less stereotypes and more agents of their respective countries.
Yeah, I think
Doesn't
Sabra is going to be in one of the movies coming up, or one of the TV shows. I can't remember, but because I think there's some controversy about the whole thing going on with Israel and Palestine right now. But I believe she's going to be in something. Maybe it's Captain America that's coming out next year, but I think
Yeah,
she's going to be in something.
Brave New World, that would make sense.
Yes, yeah, it would make sense. I think she's in that.
doesn't Talisman make more appearances, or at least another appearance?
There was a character in the X-Men for a while when they were thought to be dead and they were really just living in the Australian outback. There's a character that was a lot like Talisman, but I don't believe it was Talisman.
Okay.
I think we can all agree that we know that Marvel has run out of ideas when we get the Defensor Disney Plus series.
No, it would be more like the character that everybody liked in the 3 episodes that they were in gets the spin-off series. Like Defensor's cat or something gets a spin-off series. That's
All right, so now we come to our second contest, Ghost Town Showdown, and right away they show us that we are going to get a different battleground. We get to see 4 very distinct locations for these to play out. We've just left an Arctic tundra, and now we're in an old West Ghost town, and we've got the Grandmasters team of Defensor, She-Hulk, and Captain Britain materializing up the street from the Unknowns team of Iron Man, Arabian Night, and Sabra. They all kind of introduce themselves to each other, and uh, the Arabian Night basically states that he doesn't really want to fight alongside Sabra for reasons,
Political reasons.
political reasons. So
I
more
mean,
yeah, they get political.
maybe religious reasons.
I do want to say, in what could have been a throwaway mini, series, at least they bring it up.
They're
They're
trying.
not, yeah, they're trying.
I'm not sure they need to, but they're trying.
Well, for the people who say the comics only just got political, in the last
Right.
like 10
They-
years.
no.
It's like, well, no,
Yeah, no.
but yeah, you're right. I don't know if they needed to, but I give
Right. They didn't
I give
have
them
to,
an
but
A
they
for
gave it a
effort.
shot. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they all start going their separate ways to search the ghost town, and Defensor, She-Hulk, and Captain Britain all introduce themselves, and Defensor immediately gets into all the chivalry, bowing before She-Hulk, and um, they all take off in separate directions again to conduct the search. So I remember the first time I read this, I didn't realize how new of a character She-Hulk was. She was already a member of the Avengers by the time I read this, so it's drew me the interaction she has with Iron Man in this battle.
Now, I was going to ask you because I feel like you could, like you just said, she was such a new character when this was coming out because I feel her personality is totally not developed into what her personality, what I was introduced to her to when she was a member of the Avengers, when she was with the Fantastic Four. Um, her personality, I feel like they were still trying to work out what they wanted her to be.
Because she was She-Hulk, I think they still wanted her to be an edgier, angrier character.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's what I was going to say. I mean, she with the Burn series later and stuff where she's breaking the fourth wall. I don't mean that, but she was always a more happy-go-lucky type of character, even with Fantastic Four and the Avengers. So she just seems a little bit more angrier. It's almost teeters on the edge of stereotypical, oh, the male chauvinist pig and blah blah blah. So
yes,
you could totally tell that this was just they had not gotten her personality down yet, and it had been written a couple of years ago. So yeah.
yeah, she's almost unrecognizable,
Mm-hmm.
at least as far as her character goes.
Yep.
So Defensor and Iron Man, we get to see how Defensor's shield will reflect Iron Man's repulsor beams right back at them. Uh, Captain Britain and Arabian Knight have their fight. Marvel obviously wanted to have some, wanted to make sure like it was female battling female. So Sabra goes up against She-Hulk, and they all converge on the saloon where the wedge is hidden. Uh, it comes down to Iron Man versus She-Hulk, and She-Hulk is like, "I can take you, Iron Man," and she goes basically to kind of strangle him, and he uses a repulsor beam right up against the side of her head to kind of knock her out, and he's a little concerned that he might have been a little too aggressive with her, but he's making sure she's not hurt, which allows the Arabian Knight to kind of sneak in behind him and grab the wedge.
Yeah, and they're teammates, but you you think if they wanted to build him up a little bit more in like his first appearance, they would have maybe had him doing something a little bit more action worthy to instead of just walking in and kind of saying like, well, he's too concerned with our opponent's health, so I'll just take this and now we have it. But I guess it's a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how much Marvel had invested in these new characters and whether they felt they'd ever use it again.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm convinced had they used like Captain America or something to score the final point, they probably remembered the score.
Well, that closes out the second issue. The third issue has the and the winner, Death, and you got the Death's head skull in the center of the cover with all the main characters of the miniseries kind of floating through the air around her, and this is actually a cover scheme that I actually have a mini collection of, and I will forward you a picture of basically what I'm saying, and you'll I have a sub collection in my comic collection of covers that have a face centralized on the cover, while
the characters kind of are all around
yes,
it. It's funny that you're mentioning the cover and all that kind of stuff because it's Ed Hannigan who's doing the cover, and it almost looks like maybe because I associate him more with DC than I do with Marvel, I could have seen this as more of like a Justice League type of cover, maybe just with his art style. I mean, I think it's a great cover, but his art style just it always reminds me of more of DC, and I was like, I could have seen this as a Justice League cover
and I do have, I think, at least 2 Justice League issues in that collection.
in that collection. Yeah, I was gonna say okay.
All right, so again, the first page kind of recaps everything that's going on so that you can keep track of who is on whose team.
We can keep track of that.
Have collected pieces so far, and so far it is a tie, one between the Grandmaster and the Unknown.
Who needs to keep track of who's on whose team?
You would think since they created since they created the big sports arena, they would have created like a huge, a huge board, the scoreboard that would have kept the score. But no.
A program to hand out.
Sure.
I appreciate that they didn't want to waste everybody's time with like replay, showing the replay over and over again just to get the score right. It's like, you know what? We said it was 3-1. Screw it. It's 3-1. We're good.
Tag on the play. So the third contest takes place in China, not far from where the Terracotta Warriors are. I don't really, shamefully don't know my geography of China. But for this contest, we have the Unknowns team of Vanguard, Angel, and Black Panther, and the Grandmasters team of Wolverine, The Thing, and Le Peregrine. And, just as all before, everybody kind of introduces themselves to each other because they've never really worked together before. Wolverine, of course, has to immediately be like, I'm the badass here. I'm Wolverine, and I'm as mean as it sounds.
I'm going to light up a cigarette. I don't know where he has the pack of cigarettes and the lighter in his costume, but...
Yeah, I'm surprised Ben didn't ask for a cigar himself.
Sure, yeah. But you could see where it was probably... they didn't really change it from when it was written, because Ben says to him... he says, "You're one of those new X-Men, ain't you?" I mean, this was 1982, so he'd been with the X-Men for what, 5-6 years by now?
Yeah. Although in the compressed
yep.
comic book time, I think it might still be, valid.
I do like that Logan says, it, old timer. Wolverine and the Thing together are a great team up because it's just two cranky. They're cranky in different ways, but two cranky, surly type of characters. And Le Peregrine is just happy to be there.
They make a fun sort of odd couple kind of type, yeah.
Well, it's also clearly they hadn't established that Wolverine was an old man himself.
Yeah, yep.
So if he's calling Thing an old timer, hadn't been quite. This was still when I guess Wolverine was probably considered a teenager.
Yeah.
Originally introduced as, but they quickly decided, like, no, he's a much older, more experienced character.
Yep.
So Vanguard, Angel, and Black Panther all, they make reference to the fact that Black Panther and Angel have worked together before, and that it's nice to see each other again. Vanguard is, of course, treated as an outsider since he's Russian.
That's great. Early 80s. I just love Angel when he's like, "Listen, Ivan."
Yeah, Angel probably went to see Red Dawn in theaters not shortly after the battle. So the first two to go up against each other, and it's a perfect pick, is Black Panther versus Wolverine. And Wolverine, again, Wolverine's got to be Wolverine. He doesn't care that Black Panther is the king of his own country and, a very noble hero. Nope, I'm going to pop my claws and gut this guy. You know, I, I can win in this contest. Thing and Vanguard being the two powerhouses of their individual teams, take each other on. And of course, you've got Peregrine, who's, obviously, based off the Falcon, of course, battles the high flying Angel. So you get, a nice little aerial battle between Angel and Peregrine. You've got smackdown between the powerhouses of Vanguard and Thing, and then you get the two agile characters based on animals fighting it out. And during their battle, Wolverine is really leaning in with his claws to try to stab Black Panther. And he's like, Black Panther's like, does he really mean to slay me? Is he really going to go all out and cut me open to win this thing? And yeah, Wolverine, once he goes, he goes.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was talking about with saying that with the fights with the person. I mean this is like the perfect example of it, where Wolverine's talking and he says to him, any fight worth fighting is worth winning. And Black Panther says to him, Wolverine, this is but a game. Why do you use your claws? And you could see, I mean, they draw in his eyes. Like Black Panther he's worried as he's trying to hold back Wolverine's hands with the claws, like coming closer and closer to his chest. I mean, Wolverine's just gonna run him through. He doesn't care.
No, he doesn't know who Black Panther is. He's not a friend. He's not an ally. So since he's not a friend or an ally, he's the enemy. And this is how Wolverine is the best at what he does. But what he does isn't very nice.
Nice.
Peregrine and Angel have their little aerial battle, and Angel comes out the victor of that. Thing finally is able to take down Vanguard, and more importantly, once he does, he comes across, Wolverine about to perforate poor Black Panther, and he comes along and says, "Hey, what do you think you're doing? This guy's a friend of mine." And Wolverine's like, "I'm eliminating the competition, ugly. Any objections?" And like, yeah, the Panther's a pal of mine. And Wolverine and Thing they're on technically the same team up against Black Panther, but Thing's a loyal friend. I mean, more than any other Thing character in the Marvel Universe, Thing is, you're always going to be your pal, the ever-loving blue-eyed Thing who, stands on his friend's side.
Yeah, and I do like what he says to him. He says, "Half pint, it's too bad you and me are teammates. It's like, here's just one butt I'd like to boot from here to Boise."
Yeah.
Well, what I always loved about the Thing too was the running gag where he's like, and he's kind of, I forget which. It probably happened more than once, but I remember even reading a comic book. I forget exactly what happened, but he was like sad because the guys on Yancey Street or whatever couldn't prank him anymore for some reason. I couldn't remember exactly why, but yeah, he's a sweet dude.
One of my favorite memories of the Thing, and Todd will appreciate this, it's from I think Marvel 2-in-1 Annual number 2, where he teams up with Spider-Man to take on Thanos and rescue the Avengers. But regardless, Spider-Man has this dream where he knows the Avengers are in trouble, and he goes to the Baxter Building to see if they can help. And he sneaks into the Baxter Building while the Thing is reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King.
Yes.
And, unintentionally startles the Thing, causing him to inhale the cigar he was smoking.
Yes, I remember you showing that to me.
And I'm just gonna say, I don't want to get out on a tangent on the Thing. I love the Thing. He has never been done right in the movies. It was close with the Michael Chiklis, the way he played him.
Yes.
So when they do
reboot
when this new reboot of the Fantastic Four comes out, you have to get the Thing right. You have to get him right. They were close. Chiklis, I like the way he played him. I mean, the visual wasn't that great, but I like the way he played him. But if you don't get the Thing right and his attitude right, then you're not going to be able to make a good Fantastic Four movie.
I think it shouldn't be too hard to get the Thing's attitude right. I think it will be difficult to get the image right. Even with all the CGI, I just don't know how well that could translate to the page. Probably better than the checklist version did.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think they're always going to have a problem with that. But we'll see.
Honestly, I always felt that low budget never meant to be released.
Yeah, it did it really well, yep.
Or had a cool looking thing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll talk about this when the movie comes out next year.
Yes. Boy, will we. Hopefully we're happy and saying good things.
Yes.
So, while they're, the Thing basically gets Wolverine to stand down and, stop trying to kill the Black Panther. And that's when the Wolverine, his animal senses pick up the where the wedge is. And it's actually buried a few feet underground, which is a little odd because none of the other wedges were buried or, out of sight like this. But, the Thing is able to, use his hands to dig underground and pick it up. And now the score is Grandmaster 2, The Unknown 1. I will repeat that for people who might not. The score is 2-1, The Grandmaster. Now we cut to the final contest, which is taking place in a tropical jungle. We get the Unknowns team of Storm, Shamrock, who is on the Unknowns team with Storm and Collective Man as members of the Unknowns team. Shamrock,
it's like we're analyzing Too Many Men on the Ice footage or something.
are on the Unknowns team. Then we get Captain America, Blitzkrieg, and Sasquatch as members of the Grandmasters team. And they really drew Sasquatch as just a massive. I'm fairly certain this was my introduction to Sasquatch and most of Alpha Flight. So,
yeah, I was never a big Alpha Flight guy, but I always thought Sasquatch had a cool look, and he looks cool in this.
He looks fantastic in this.
Yeah.
Once again, our heroes all introduce themselves. Captain America is like he's never met Sasquatch before, but, of course, being a leader of the Avengers, he's going to be up to date on who everybody is. And Blitzkrieger introduced themselves as West Germany. For those too young to remember that after World War II, Germany was separated into two countries, West Germany and East Germany. And West Germany was the one we were allied with. So that's probably why they really stress that Blitzkrieger is from West Germany and not East Germany, which was the communist occupied territory. But fortunately, unification, it's all one Germany now. Shamrock, Collective Man, and Storm all introduce each other, and this is where we first get an idea of who the Collective Man is. He's basically, for people familiar with, Jamie Maddox.
Yeah.
Yes. Collective Man is basically that. He can split himself into multiple people.
Oh, but so much more.
Yes. And Shamrock reminds the two that she is actually on their team, which is the Unknowns team. Go on.
No, I was just saying yes. Wait, which team is that again? You don't know which team she's on, you're saying?
No, she's on the Unknowns team.
Oh, I see. Well, that won't really. That detail is not all that important.
No, go on about the collective man.
No, just the collective man. His powers are interesting. I'm trying to look him up again, but it's something like he has the powers of like any one person in his nation or something like that. It was something like very specific, and they stress it like twice. It's just his powers are just very odd. I mean, shamrocks are really on the nose. Of course, she's wearing green. She got the big shamrock, and she's plucky. Okay. Arabian Night, I suppose, is Arabian. Is his power, I guess. I wasn't too clear on that one,
He has a flying carpet.
yes,
Sword.
yes, and sword. So again, he has the power of being Arabian, I guess.
Yes.
And but oh man, I can't find it now. But just when you read the comic, like Collective Man he's interesting. He's like they really reached for that one. They tried with that one. With that, I think it was after Shamrock. They were like, all right, that was pretty lazy. What can we do with Collective Man? And they just went a little weird.
He is.
But I also kind of love it.
He's 5 beings in one, and can collectively we can draw on the power and abilities of any and all citizens of our nation.
Right. So what if someone like moved? Does he not? Like he was in the middle of something. He's like, "Oh, great, this is perfect because I have the power of so and so. I can totally fix this." And then, but that's the day that they moved to like Lithuania or something. Is it suddenly like, "Oh, I can't do this now"? Like, he's a fascinating character, is what I'm saying.
You should write a 5-issue miniseries on him.
One for each.
One for each person. Yeah, exactly.
Brian Michael. That would be Brian Michael Bendis or Garth Ennis. Who's doing it?
So, flying above the jungle, Storm and Blitzkrieg basically get into a lightning war, which is really, really cool looking.
Yep.
Captain America decides he's going to play like Johnny Weissmuller and be Tarzan swinging through the trees. He doesn't notice Shamrock up in the trees because, luckily, her costume is green and blends in with the foliage. And it's just a great rendition of Captain America swinging through the trees, vine to vine. When
if only they had a character, like a famous character, that could do something like that.
You know, we didn't really see much of Kazar. But who's going to pick Kazar over Captain America anyway?
You know what? I stood corrected here.
Sorry, Sasquatch, and I like how they point out that, you know, here's this big furry guy in a tropical jungle, and, you know, he is sweating. They even show that, you know, he is not comfortable in this heat.
Yeah.
He takes on the Collective Man while Captain America and Shamrock basically have a little cat and mouse chase through the jungle. And, you know, fortunately, you know, while Shamrock doesn't think she's up to the challenge of taking on Captain America, she just basically hopes her luck is with her when a snake kind of appears out of nowhere and, you know, halts Captain America.
As luck often manifests.
Exactly. In the form of a poisonous snake.
Just a stroke of
luck.
I
think it's a constricting one, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Captain
I only know because it's the luckiest of snakes.
Captain America and Blitzkrieg meet up again, and, you know, he asks Blitzkrieg if he's spotted the prize, which he has not. So they separate and continue on their journey together. The Collective Man has defeated Sasquatch. Blitzkrieger basically charges up the air molecules to create an electrical vortex that may reveal the prize, because, yeah, I know whenever I'm looking for something, I call an electrician to see if he can rewire the house to create electrical vortex so I can find one.
Who doesn't?
Although I shouldn't be mocking it because it works.
It works.
And the
Find My iPhone wasn't invented yet.
it wedges itself in a tree, and Captain America leaps for it to grab it. But just before he gets his hand on it, Shamrock, who is part of the Unknown's team, was closer. Just lucky, I guess. And Shamrock of the Unknown's team gets the wedge. Therefore, the final score is Grandmaster 3, Unknown 1.
Wait,
Math
what?
checks out.
It's the new math.
Math checks out.
And yes, this, is what led to basically, people writing letters, people questioning. Because again, it shows, that shows them all appearing in the arena again. And again, we get some, often unseen characters of the Marvel Universe standing behind Grandmaster and the Unknown. We get American Eagle, Blue Shield, I forget, Shooting Star of the Texas Rangers, Union Jack, and Quasar, all very underutilized characters at this time, getting their little spotlight to show, hey, we're in this too. All of the Earth's heroes are here, as you can see by us being represented here on this page. And the contest is over. All pawns have returned. And the Unknown says, it would seem you have won, Grandmaster. 3 of the 4 pawns bearing the globe are yours.
It would seem.
No. Shamrock made it a tie. And, again, it was a mistake. Just,
Is there anyone in that entire stadium of the Earth's greatest heroes smart enough to count to 4?
You would think like Reed Richards, possibly.
You think he might have been able to figure, or any one of the Fantastic Four
Exactly.
wearing the very number on their chest would be able to do this math.
And you almost think like, Shamrock would be looking around like, wait a minute, I have one, and Daredevil.
She doesn't know who she is or what team she's on. She forgot. She was the jobber called in at the last minute to fill out the house show. They just lost track.
But immediately the heroes are almost already forgotten, because now the Grandmaster and the Unknown are, settling their wager, when, for whatever reason, Sue Storm sneaks up on the Unknown, pulls back the hood, and it's revealed that the Unknown is literally death. The embodiment of death for the Marvel Universe, which would make sense, because who else but death could bring back the dead?
And also Thanos' side piece, or wannabe side piece. Thanos wants her to be.
Yeah, she's never been too impressed with that.
No. Not even the Thanos copter can impress her.
Thanos copter.
Yes.
I gotta see that.
Spidey super stories. I'll find it somewhere. So all is revealed, and it's unfortunately also revealed that, yes, Grandmaster, you will be able to bring your brother back to life, but you're going to need to sacrifice your life to bring him back. So your brother is going to come back from the dead to find out his brother has sacrificed himself to bring him back. Which they do, and the Collector comes back and is immediately like, well, Death, I'm going to figure out a way for you to get my brother to come back to life. The heroes are all returned to Earth, but some time has passed, and Beast basically claims he won the challenge. He even admits, hey, I hate to do this, but we've been gone for almost an hour, which is considerably longer. I've avoided, I've won our wager. And it ends with the Avengers basically looking up to the sky and wondering, well, what's next? The end.
Yeah, a little bit of.
It's
No.
anticlimactic.
Yeah, it's a little anticlimactic.
When they're looking up at the sky,
Heroes did all this, and it's just like, okay, we're done with you. Put the toys back in the box.
Maybe you can think of it and say they're so insignificant as compared to these godlike creatures that's just how the Death and the Grandmaster and that's how they see them, as just pawns in the whole universal game.
They said that literally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they literally called them pawns in a game multiple times. So I guess,
Yeah.
I like to think when they're looking up to the sky, they're like, wait a minute, Shamrock was on.
Yeah, like Captain America's like, wait, did anybody else notice that Shamrock was on Death's team? Okay, well, I get. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
they probably didn't want
Who
to have
wants a
overtime.
smoothie? Call Jarvis and get us a smoothie.
Like, this is on our own time anyway. We don't need overtime. Game's over. Yep, 3-1. We're good. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently there was no instant replay review by the refs to say, hey, wait a minute. And, yeah, it would later on lead to a semi-sequel in the two Avengers annuals, 4 years later, which I remember thinking when I was a kid reading that, and I was like, oh, this is a sequel to Contest of Champions. Like, wow. But that was so long ago. They're only getting around to it now. And now I think back 4 years, that's nothing.
Yeah.
That's an insignificant amount of time. But when you're a kid,
yeah, in kid time, that's forever. That's a lifetime.
Now, I don't know if you obviously because the art for the third issue was probably drawn long after the art for the first two. There is a bit of dip in quality, especially I would say in the inking. The art of the third issue just doesn't quite hold up to what came before. It's still good.
Yeah, you can tell there's a little bit of a difference in the third issue. And like I say, it's not terrible, but you could just tell there's a slight dip.
Particularly in the last few pages.
Yeah.
The pages of the actual contest are right up to par with the others.
Yeah.
They get back to the for the lack of a better word, the satellite. It's a little weaker, a little looser.
Yep.
But as we made mention before, we are also offered for the first time, again, what I believe is for the first time anywhere, a complete list of all of Marvel's superheroes, broken down not only in alphabetical order, but also a separate list for all the inactive or retired heroes, and then a separate list for all the heroes who have passed on. And those two lists also give you this is why they are retired or inactive, and this is how they died, and this is the issue they died in. Not only do you get their first appearance, if you're a collector and you want somebody like, I want to get the first and last appearance of all these heroes, they have just given you a guide to do it long before you could go online to do any of that. And about a year or two before you would get the official handbook of the Marvel Universe or DC's Who's Who.
Yeah. And this was in with each issue, they put it in the back of each issue. And then, I mean, that's cool. That would be, for somebody like me, that would have been like manna from heaven, like just to get to read that kind of stuff. And
it was reference material for me specifically because, a lot of these heroes, I didn't know who they were. And to have this, my only complaint, and they do have like headshots of the heroes scattered throughout it. I really wish, it probably would have taken up it would have taken up more space, but I wish they had put a headshot next to each entry, because otherwise, if you don't know who, a certain character is, without a visual representation, I guess you could kind of put it together on your own, but like, for instance, Falcon. Maybe you don't know who Falcon is or what he looks like, or Paladin. a nice little, one of the usually what you would see in the corner box, a little, uh,
Yeah, I know,
picture.
like a little headshot or something like that
Yeah,
of each one. Yep.
and what occurs to me is that they have actually a headshot of Rom, and it's still reprinted in this, and I think this came out at the time when they weren't reprinting Rom visually in any of their comics. Maybe that just slipped past.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't keep score of the main of the main driving force behind the
Right.
whole limited
They
series. So I mean, if something like that slipped past, I can kind of understand.
they couldn't keep track of 4 entire points.
But this is still like a super fun comic
Yep.
because, again, outside of like say Wolverine and some of the more aggressive characters really going at each other, it's still the heroes being heroes and realizing, all right, this is stupid. We don't like this, but we still got to go through the paces. Whether it's because if we win, the Grandmaster will never interfere with Earth again and use, Earth people as pawns in his game, or the other team wins and the Earth gets another million years to live.
Well, so now about that, actually. Which of the two prizes do you think is better? Which of the two are you fighting for more?
The extra million years in the sun's life is probably good, but there was
Is
no
it?
guarantee that even though the life of the sun was extended, she didn't really mention whether the
Civilization would still be around.
Do you
I would be a horrible hero, but I'd be basically F those kids because I'm not gonna be
get
alive. What do I care? I'd rather, like you said, for a Marvel superhero, every day you're waking up somewhere. Okay, where am I at? I was just eating on the couch watching
right?
TV.
Like
So if I'm gonna have one less demigod being that's going to mess with me, I think I'll try to take that. And you know what? I'm a superhero. Who knows if I'm going to live past 40 anyway? So I really don't care if the sun is gonna be. We're going to have an extra couple of years of the sun. I just don't want. I need. I got to worry about Doctor Doom and Doctor Octopus. I don't feel like worrying about the Grandmaster anymore.
well,
right,
especially where at this time the superheroes didn't have to worry about constantly coming back to life after dying. At the time this was written, if a character was killed off, they were killed off. They
Yeah.
weren't, nobody was sitting around like, oh, well, they'll be back by the next time they do another event. So, I mean, nowadays, I would say go for the extra sun because you don't want to have come back from the dead for the billionth time only to find out the sun's going out.
right. But I mean, if you finding out the sun is going out, or what or I guess to put it a different way, Reed and the rest of them knew that probably know the moment the sun is going to go out. They may have it calculated, but I mean, I guess to put it another way, they know for a fact there are other planets and other dimensions and whatnot. Like, okay, the sun goes out, big deal. It was always going to do that. If they're somehow still alive at that point, millions of years into the future, Windshot May will certainly be. Why not just isn't that just the solution? Like, it's just they were just going to fix that problem anyway. Like, what's a million years? I guess. Like, what difference is it?
Yeah, you're right. There's enough gods and demigods amongst the heroes that they could probably figure out a way to reignite the sun for an
Yeah.
extra years.
Because I almost wonder why they didn't choose, and maybe they said it, but I wonder why they didn't choose like heroes and villains so that have a real impetus to fight each other. Because to me, like, it worked out anyway, and it's a good and it's a good book. I certainly enjoyed it. I really did. It's just one of those things where it's just like, to me, it's like, why not just get together, decide which side wants to win, and then just go through the motions. Be like, oh no, we didn't get to them. They got to the globe first. They won. Like, why even fight?
Yeah, it's true. See, now that's bringing up the thing where that's now out there in the pop culture ether, where people say that if you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, that Indiana Jones really has no bearing on the story.
Well, Yeah, which is it's
See, but you're totally right with this too. It's like, well, just let them win because it's kind of a win-win either way. They didn't say that they're going to kill us if we don't do this. It's just either somebody's going to leave us alone or we're going to help future generations. So hey,
Well, again, going back to the original concept, it was supposed to be a friendly competition.
it was supposed to just be a competition. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yep.
And people who think Indiana Jones had no bearing on the plot didn't pay attention to the movie.
Yes, are idiots, but
Right.
that's beside the point.
Right. Well, plus it doesn't change the fact it's still a good movie. Like, it doesn't
Yes.
make it not a good movie. Even if it's true, it doesn't make it not a good movie. It's still a good movie. As I've said, like, this is still a fun book to read no matter what.
Yep.
And it introduces you to a bunch of, whether you like any of these new international heroes and whether they're going to be used time and time again, regardless, it introduced me to characters outside of Spider-Man and the Hulk and,
Right.
the Fantastic Four, which were the characters I would have been most familiar with at the time.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have to look at it, like I said, in 1982, where Spider-Man, the Hulk, Fantastic Four were still, and the X-Men were still top sellers. So we think of Captain America and Iron Man now as being like these super popular characters. Not that Captain America and Iron Man weren't known then, but they weren't as popular as they are now. And getting to put Daredevil in there, putting even like having Storm, and like we said with Wolverine, who was moving up the ladder, but he wasn't what he is now. So,
Right.
like we said, it was interesting to put the different personalities together to see how they handled it. The fight between Wolverine and Black Panther is, to me, the best part of all three issues, just because it just boils down both of their personalities, and I like. Black Panther fighting with honor and realizing what the situation is, and Wolverine is he's not berserker rage, but to him, like he said, I mean, any fight means it's a fight worth winning. He's not going to pull his punches or pull his claws if we're talking about Wolverine.
I just like the idea of a story where you have these two beings of truly limitless power, and they're like, you know what? Let's take these other beings of nearly but not quite apparently limitless power and just mess with them and like make them play our game to solve our problem. I just think that's a really neat idea. Like, we're just gonna stop time on this planet and pluck these guys out just to fight them. Let's stop and play Street Fighter to like solve this problem, sort of thing. And I'm gonna fix. I just think that's kind of neat. That they're because it's like, think about it. It's like Thor. I mean, you get like Thor, Hulk, like all of these guys. Like, they fight Galactus. They fight alien invasions, but these guys are treating them just like they're playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots or something.
Well, and if you even take the Grandmaster at his word, where he won and would never use Earth people in his games again, it was only 2 years later that the Beyonder would say, "Well, I didn't make that promise.
Yep.
You're gonna have me a Secret Wars."
I'm not
Right.
gonna put you in a stadium. I'll create a whole battle world for you to fight on.
Well, and it makes me wonder, was there ever a time where one of these nearly omnipotent beings, because this even goes back to like Star Trek, where, the members of the Enterprise and, other people were captured by, near omnipotent aliens and forced to face each other in battles to determine good or evil. It makes me wonder if, like, the Grandmaster was up there ready to play his game when all of a sudden, Odin, for the sake of argument, was like, "Oh, but I was about to have a bet against Hela, and we were going to use the Earth's heroes. Well, no, I got here first. Let me have my battle, and then you can come along and you can do your battle."
Yeah, it's just another added
It would be like when
tough thing.
Todd and I used to play with our Star Wars figures and our GI Joes, and we would do like picks like, well, I'm going to be Han Solo,
Right.
and all right, you could pick Luke, and now I'll pick Chewbacca, and I was like, oh, I wanted to pick Captain America. Meanwhile, Spider-Man's like, pick me.
Which hero do you think was the most? Because like we know some were immediately disqualified, like Thor, because they specifically said like Asgardians, aliens, immortals, and so on. But which of the heroes, presumably Spider-Man, at least for one, and definitely Johnny Storm. Like which heroes would have been the most like what the when they see guys like Shamrock or whatever getting picked ahead of people, they literally
Namor.
like who are these people?
Namor, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, Namor. Well, I think maybe they said Atlanteans too. I don't remember.
All I know is we're taping this episode right before the Paris Olympics start, and they're going to be so underwhelming after reading the Contest of Champions that I can't even watch.
The last time I remember caring about the Olympics was in 1984 when McDonald's was giving away food. Anytime the American team would win, bronze, gold, or silver medals. And unfortunately for them, they chose the Olympics that the Soviet boycotted. And so the biggest competition to the United States wasn't there. And McDonald's was giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of free food because the events, the Americans were winning like the majority of all the events.
That's probably why my parents took me to McDonald's a lot that summer.
Because they're patriots.
That's right. That's right. I think the Olympics that year were sponsored by McDonald's, by Michelob, and by Marlboro. Yes, I think it's time to say goodnight and to say goodbye to the audience and to say thank you for listening and to say that we will see you next month with something. We haven't figured it out yet, but we'll figure it out soon, and you'll see us soon.
Hopefully my voice recovers.
That would be good. We need that to happen. Before we do go, I wanted to share a couple of reviews that we got over the past month since the last episode had come out. And I believe, well, I'm saying I believe, but I almost know 99.9% sure that both of these reviews are from the same person, and you'll see why. It's not like I'm Batman, the world's greatest detective. It's not like it took some kind of sleuthing to figure that out. But we got a new 5-star review on Apple. And it was 5 stars. My new go-to comic book podcast. And this was on June 13th from a Steve McD. And Steve writes, great conversations focusing on the things we love about Copper Age comics. Whether covering books that bring back childhood memories or stories that I missed at the spinner rack, MFSB is a show that makes me feel like I'm hanging out with friends at the comic book shop talking about our favorite superheroes. So, Steve, I wanted to say thank you for giving us a 5-star review. That is always welcome. And this is the other review we got, and I think you'll be able to figure out why I mentioned that I did not need to be Sherlock Holmes or Batman to think that this was the same person. On our Facebook page, and look for us on Facebook, just we're Mass Faces and Secret Bases, we got a message from a Stephen McDonald. So Stephen McDonald and Steve McD. I wonder. And he said, found Mass Faces and Secret Bases after Mike's appearance on Mountain Comics last week. I want to thank Rob Kelly for having me on Mountain Comics. I think we experienced a little bit of a Rob Kelly bump after I appeared on there. It seems like we had a bunch of new people checking out the show, so thank you, Rob. Great conversations and focusing on the things we love about these Copper Age comics makes for a fun listen. I've already burned through the Year 2, Living Monolith, and Kirby Superpowers episodes. Detective Comics number 578, the final Year 2 issue, and the most McFarlane of them all, was my first Batman comic, so this episode brought back so many fond memories. Thanks for putting on such a great show, and please keep them coming. Steve, thank you so much for the feedback, whether it be on Apple Podcast or Facebook, and we ask everybody, like we always do, please go to Apple, give us a 5-star review, share the show with your friends if they're into comics, if they're into these specific types of comics from these years that we've been covering. Please share the show, and we appreciate any feedback. Visit us on Facebook. Like I said, it's Mass Faces and Secret Bases. You can also email us. We had gotten a couple emails, which was nice. Our email address is facesbases1@gmail.com. So that's facesbases1@gmail.com. And you could also, as the kids like to do, and they would probably, I'm saying that, but the kids would probably go onto Instagram, which we're not on Instagram, so I guess not. But check us out on Twitter. We're at FacesBases0808. That's at FacesBases0808. So just drop us. I always say drop us a line. That's so old. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think about the show. Give us a review, and please, like I said, share with your friends. But like we said, that will be it for this month. We will be back soon. And I just wanted to say, I was going to steal Matt's line, but I was going to say we will see you in the funny papers. And have a good one, and we'll see you guys soon.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.